Over a year ago, I was searching for my personal interest in a world full of societal challenges that we live in. I ended up finding a spark of passion for the system world that we live in. A complex systematic composition that determines many factors in our lives. How we as human beings live with these systems is different for everyone. However, my main conclusion was people cope, escape, or they change the system. More than a year later, I developed myself as a social innovator, and so did my interest in what it actually was that I wanted to change. What is it that I want to change? I began to ask myself. A deep desire for changing the world for future generations. Isn't that something we all want? Well, you might think, are not all challenges we need to solve for future generations? Yeah, that's true, but in my opinion, it actually all starts with one. The feeling that we can all make a change as a real democracy.
A structural change is needed in order to solve big challenges together. While the landscape of crisis that we face is impossible to solve one at a time, facing challenges like biodiversity loss, inequality, the environment that's getting in danger, and a democracy in which only 5% feel like their voices make a difference. The structural change needed to make an impact starts with real democracy, stated by Christian Felber. We need to move the political economy into a system that is inclusive, just, and ecologically sustainable instead of an amoral economy of financial extraction. A long-term change which is not just for the benefit of the market, but for the people. We need to go from pointing fingers to the state, complaining, and just not taking action, to co-creating that new value set in which we all can play a role and make a difference. Well, wouldn't you like to contribute to societal challenges too? Before I dive into details, I want to note that I make use of the word democracy. Nevertheless, I do not try to focus on the national democracy as we all know it. I want to get your attention to the bottom layer of the 5 levels of governance. The municipality. And ideally, I add another layer which is called citizens. And without explaining the term too much, let's look at it from a bottom-up approach and see how it can transform the other layers.
As stated before, a big transformation is required to transform this landscape of crises. That's how I started to get my attention to the municipality. I wondered, how can I make structural change in my own neighborhood, within the topic of climate crisis, for example? After Googling around and asking my neighbors, I ended up reading about the possibility to adopt a piece of wild green around my tree. To plant some flowers, to plant some plants, and eventually have a tiny bit of contribution when heavy rainfalls are there. It's really cute and definitely worth doing. Nevertheless, it was not the type of structural change I was looking for. I kept wondering to myself, where can I collaborate, co-create, share new meanings for what the climate crisis in this case means for me in my neighborhood, and how we can really act upon that. With the knowledge that I had at that time, I thought there was one thing left to do. Grab the courage to take action into understanding politics. Because would that maybe be the place for real structural change?
I took a course offered by the municipality of Voorschoten and facilitated by ProDemos to gain more knowledge about what it would entail to become politically active in my local town. At first, my goal was not so much to become a local politician of the city council, but more to understand what is happening on the governance level closest to citizens. And to really see whether this is the right place to step in order to bring local change. It was more like stepping into a traditional system of politics and seeing what their meaning is of a representative democracy. While discovering what it means to be a city council, I concluded quite soon that this might not be the right fit for me as a social innovator. Well, how would it feel when being a city council? Having a certain image linked to me? Well, I want that personal community approach to motivate around a certain topic which citizens themselves are passionate about. The agendas that city councils have are framed in the goals of checking the power, framing policies, and representing citizens. And all of that combined in the time of a part-time job. It's something you do for fun, but you also need to have time to invest in it. And to the last part, by the way, representing citizens, I felt the most compassionate. Well, there's also a difficulty in trying to represent all groups in cities and villages. Therefore, representing youth would definitely be a step in the right direction to become a more inclusive village. Another big topic we covered during the course was in regard to the types of influence citizens can have. As you read in the previous text written by the House of Representatives, it is acknowledged that citizens individually have little influence or power. But the types of influence they describe are short-term options, which differ in effectiveness per topic, like media, which is a big factor of our lives. It's right in our hands, and we're able to influence like politicians almost directly. Or for example, lobbying. Politicians will take account the opinions of the most important movements that enjoy major public support, such as trade unions or the farming sector. But this won't help on the long term. Let's just join forces. And I'm not here to tell you what's the best way to influence local governments. Nevertheless, what I want you to know that we are able to step outside the traditional types of influence in a system that we are used to. I mean, the future alternatives are already happening right here, right now. There are villages who paint their own currency, explore the advantages of citizen assemblies, or even build their own economy in a very local level, like the eco-villages.
I want to live in a society where I don't have to be a Greta to grab the right media attention, and where we don't have to become city council members to make some structural change on a local level. I want us to make those decisions together, to create a language which we all understand, have a shared agenda, and which we all are an important voice. So I would like to ask you to have a look at what's happening in your local neighborhood. Many pilots start to rise, while the need for a local democracy is getting bigger and bigger. Take a first step in discovering this grey area and talk together about what really matters to you. Let's connect to make the local democracy the new standard.